Hello everybody and welcome to channel 606.
Welcome to 69,400.
Hello and welcome to Burris Lightspeed Systems Student News. I'm Dylan Kring.
And I'm Calvin Walter Heinzelman.
And today we have a special broadcast.
We have interviewed faculty all around our school about their political opinions.
And before we get to that, let's meet the candidates.
Ben Carson is a retired neurosurgeon and presidential candidate with the Republican Party in the 2016 presidential election. He was born in Detroit, Michigan, and attended Yale University and the University of Michigan Medical School. He is best known in the medical community for separating conjoined twins at the head and coming up with a system of controlling brain seizures, both of which he was honored for with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2008. He is conservative, but has little political experience as this is the first election he has ran in within his political career. He is considered extremely pro-life. In education, he wants to implement a system in which political bias is weeded out of public education, and advocates school choice. He is anti-gun, but does state that semi-automatic firearms need to be better controlled. Carson would prefer a new healthcare program, and believes Obamacare is an awful solution. He is also for the strict medical use of marijuana. He believes as well in the biblical definition of marriage.
Hello, I'm Calvin Heinzelman. I'm here to talk about Hillary Clinton candidate for the upcoming presidential election. Her stance on abortions is that she wants to legalize them, make them safe, rare, but legal. She wants to give federal funds for contraception, and she wants to lift bans on stem cell research. She also wants to pay off the national debt and cut taxes with a balanced budget. Yet she was generally voted against reduced spending. She supports gay marriage, but didn't used to. She's generally against large corporations and does not like corporate welfare. She believes inequality is not inevitable in America, and she wants to have non-violent drug offenders to not go to prison. She's also somewhat unclear on about her stance on medical marijuana. And in the schools, she wants the Bible to be taught historically and as literature, but not as science nor as a religion. She also wants to improve education rights up through college. So, like, people have the right to education all the way through college. She also wants to regulate guns more, but not completely ban them. And she is against Obamacare currently. She is for legal immigration and wants to make it easier for immigrants to immigrate legally into America, and she thinks that deporting all the illegal immigrants is unrealistic. She's also for increasing the minimum wage, and she doesn't want to divert attention from Afghanistan and believes we've done that too much. She went to Wellesley College and earned her JD at Yale Law School. She has been a senator, she's been the First Lady, and she's been the Secretary of State. And that's Hillary Clinton.
Well, I'm here to talk to you about our candidate, Donald J. Trump. He's a candidate of the people that was born in June 14th, 1946 in Queens, New York. He's an American real estate developer, and his grandparents were German immigrants. His parents also are real estate developers, and that's why he went into that line of business. Donald J. Trump graduated from Wharton University with a Bachelor's of Science degree in economics. Trump was not drafted for Vietnam due to 4 deferments that he got through school. Trump has an $8 million net worth, and he plans to make America great. He's now running for president on the Republican ticket, and all we really know about him is that he's going to make America greater, raise some taxes, and lower some taxes. And his only other political experience that he had is he ran against Obama and all of the other Democratic and Republican presidents the year of 2008. That's all.
Oh. Bernard Bernie the Burn Baby Burns Sanders was born in September of 1941 in Brooklyn, New York. Raised in a small rent-controlled apartment, young Sanders would soon grow up to do many things in politics. Sanders graduated from the University of Chicago in 1964, and as a student was a member of the Young People's Socialist League, an active member and civil rights protest organizer for the Congress of Racial Equality. In 1963, Sanders also marched in Martin Luther King Jr.'s March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, where Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. Though struggling through a few unsuccessful election races throughout the mid to late 1970s, Sanders was elected mayor of Burlington, Vermont's most populous city, in 1981. Sanders also co-founded the Congressional Progressive Caucus in 1991. Sanders served 16 years as a congressman before being elected to the U.S. Senate in 2006, then being re-elected by a large 71% margin in 2012. Sanders has strong views on U.S. foreign policy and was a strong opponent against the Iraq War. Sanders is a Democratic candidate in the 2016 presidential race.
And now, let's check out the teacher interviews.
What are your thoughts on the Syrian refugee crisis?
Oh, see, that's a tough one. I think the Middle East ought to be taking care of their issues. For one, because a lot of those countries aren't stepping up. Number two, without an international group to try to solve the problem, I don't see it going forward. Three, the U.S. still needs to be a leader. I don't think turning refugees away is the right idea, but there's no simple solution. So, sorry, I don't have a good answer for that one.
It's a tragedy. It's sad. History, as Mark Twain said, doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And I think that we would do ourselves a favor by looking back in history to see how we've handled this previously, how to not handle this.
Well, what we have is it's a little bit of a conundrum where you have ISIS who needs the Syrians in order to establish their caliphate, and they're pushing them out. It's a situation where if Europe and the United States don't accept them, their only option is to go back to Syria and join ISIS and fulfill the hopes of ISIS of establishing a caliphate. So,
I think it's unfortunate that they are dealing with that, but I'm sure that if I was over there in Syria, I'd probably be trying to flee from there also. As far as like Indiana's stance on that, personally, I think that they should be more welcoming. Like, I understand there's security issues, and they should just be more adamant about how they search them and check them out and stuff, but I think they should definitely be more accepting of them.
I think it's a big hot mess. Honestly, it's created a lot of there's a lot of unintended consequences. I think I'm not opposed to us being involved, but the whole idea of taking in the refugees is that make you a bigger target, and that's where I guess politically I alter with the politicians of today. I think the whole Teddy Roosevelt, we're policemen of the world type thing. I think it backfires on us a little bit. I think there's enough problems here at home with homelessness and the way we treat a lot of our own people. Why are we going to take in 10,000 more? That's my big concern. Is at some point in time you got to deal with the issues you have at home and not worry about everybody else's issues. Sometimes the Syrian issue needs to be a Syrian issue, and a U.S. issue needs to be a U.S. issue, and that's where I'm kind of conflicted.
yeah, where everyone's kind of in a pickle right now, because I think that the passport that was left at the concert hall in France, I think it was staged. It was meant to cause fear in the Europeans and the Americans to say, this guy came in as a false Syrian refugee, and therefore all of the rest of them are going to come in that way. But in reality, those that did the terror attacks in Paris were from the area. They were from Belgium. They were nationals, French nationals. So I think that in the end, if we accept the Syrian refugees, and if Europe accepts them, it actually causes more problems for ISIS.
Which is the most important current issue out of these? Equality, the economy, healthcare, education, or foreign policy?
Well, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to say education.
Foreign policy.
Why would you say so?
With the conflicts going on overseas right now and with the Syrian refugee crisis, that's going to be the most important thing to look for.
Yes.
Here in the United States?
Yeah.
Well, as an educator, I think that education is the foundation for everything. And sadly enough, I say as an educator, but that should be society's belief, that if you do not have an education system that is going to build your society, your economy is going to fail, and your ability to deal with political issues outside of your country aren't going to see themselves through. Right now, America's education system is in dire needs of a reboot.
Question 2. Which is the most important current issue out of these? Equality, economy, healthcare, education, or foreign policy?
Well, I think being a teacher that education is the most important, but then I would say equality. But education does influence all the following. So education.
Well, being a teacher, I would say education.
I'm always going to say education because I think that ties into the rest. If you educate people about the economy, guess what? It works out. And the stronger the economy is, then I think the less healthcare becomes an issue, because the more people are working the stronger economy, the more opportunities people have for healthcare, as opposed to us trying to provide for it. And I think also the more you educate people, the more sound your foreign policy can be. So I think that all ties back. I think a lot of times politicians lose sight of that. It's like you get to where you get because you're educated. And then they want to go back and change education. It's like you forget that at the root of it is if you can't learn to read and write and do these things, you're never going to become that other thing. But I think education leads to all those others.
Quality and education.
Out of the Democratic candidates, who do you think will get the nomination and why?
So that's like Hillary and Bernie Sanders?
Yes. And some other ones.
I would say those two. Bernie,
Those-
what's his name? Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton.
And do you have any specific reason for those two, possibly?
They're the ones I hear about the most.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary's been around a while. We all know who she is.
Yep.
So I think that's why those two are probably the...
I don't know yet. I think it's still too early.
I don't have much to say about that because I'm not even sure who they are.
I think that Hillary Clinton will get the nomination. It doesn't mean that I support Hillary Clinton, but I think she'll get the nomination because of her organization.
I think Clinton's got probably the lead, but I still think it's too early to tell.
Bernie Sanders. Well, I think he's got a lot more of the younger votes coming his way than Hillary Clinton will.
Yes.
Why? I would say that from the Democratic Party, Hillary will probably get the nomination.
Same question, but for the Republican Party?
I don't know that there's anybody out there right now that's going to be a clear front runner.
I think right now it's going to be a toss-up. I think Trump's going to disappear, But I think really Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio are going to be the two that come out. Who's going to be the top? I really don't know yet at this time. I think one of those two, you can't be that extreme. So that's where I think Trump's going to eventually fall off. He's just too far out there a little bit. I think he's going to end up probably running as an independent, which I don't know if who that's going to help or hurt yet. But I would like to see either like a Rubio or a Bush, as much as I'm not sure I want another Bush in office, but he seems to be different than the other ones. And I think between those two, I think is the route. I think one of those emerging.
Okay.
Donald Trump.
Who are the Republican candidates?
There's Ben Carson, Donald Trump, any of the other ones that you heard.
Wow, that's tough. I don't know. Ben Carson, maybe? I don't think Donald Trump will do it.
Okay.
Same answer. I haven't really followed the presidential election. I mean, I'll research them before I vote, but I just haven't followed them.
Trump, I think, he's more of a reality show. Not sure about Carson or any of the rest of them. So like I said, Clinton's pretty defined, and Bernie Sanders, but I can't necessarily pick one Republican that's just kind of jumped out. So I don't like circuses. So that's one of those where it's hard to tell who's performing at the moment with the Republicans.
What do you look for when voting for a candidate?
I look for things that have similar interests that I agree with. So I look at where they stand on issues. One, there's certain things. To me, the biggest one is their stance on education, because that's what I do all the time, and there's drastically different approaches to it right now. I want to look at how they're going to handle tax. I want to look at how they're going to handle foreign affairs. I want to look at how they're going to handle the economy. I mean, that's the economy teacher in me. It's never going to leave.
Okay.
I'm going to look at those things. But then I also look at who's going to be able to get the two sides to work together.
Okay.
Because ultimately, you can say you want to do all these things, but you're one person, you're one branch. If you can't get Congress behind you, it won't work.
Okay.
Honesty, integrity, intelligence.
I try to look for the third party because I'm really not a Democrat or a Republican.
Well, for the president, I try to pick the person I think is going to be the best leader. They don't have to be Republican or Democrat. To me, that is a non-issue. The president on a day-to-day basis doesn't affect me. My perspective. My perspective is my House representative, my House Senate, state of Indiana, is going to affect me more on a day-to-day basis. The president is more about security and then global policy. So that to me, that's different. So for the president, I pick the best person for the job.
Proactive rather than reactive.
Someone who can balance foreign conflicts and issues with domestic conflicts and issues. Hopefully that has some experience doing it.
Yeah.
I look for someone who is going to be, I mean, not just like be nice to everybody, but who is a good leader, but also generally a kind person, because I think there's some who are running who are just kind of like jerks. And so, I mean, I just don't really think that would be a great leader of our country, to be someone who's not nice to the general population.
I think I like the ones that are not either Democrat or Republican. I tend to vote towards that one.
What do you think will be the biggest challenge for the next president?
Fixing what Obama has kind of screwed up. Honestly, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that could be fixed, and I think education and the whole healthcare reform situation, I think there's a lot of things that have went bad with that, and so fixing those are going to take a lot of work. But also, there's always, with the military stance and like where we are in other countries, I think that's always a big thing, deciding what they're going to do in those places and whether or not to have troops in certain places and not to. That's always a big debate, so I think that's a hard decision for anyone to make. They can fight for both sides on that.
Well, I think ISIS is going to be a big challenge they're going to have to tackle.
Our economy.
Probably the biggest for the next president, outside of the economy, going forward, is global issues, whether it's such as Syria, whether it's energy. Yeah, I think that's gonna be a hard call in the future. So.
I think it's going to be unifying the United States. And what I mean by that is, right now I think we're at such a political divide. You look at the racial issues today, it's black and white. You look at it's Democrat, it's Republican. It's who's going to be that person that's going to bring us all back together. We need that charismatic leader. We need another JFK type that's just really going to wow the nation and bring us together, not divide us, so we can actually get something done and start looking at what's best for the United States people as opposed to their own political party. I think whoever can do that, I think that's going to be the biggest challenge moving forward.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Mr. Beal.
Absolutely.
Racial tensions.
Gaining momentum to do anything, I don't think there's necessarily a right course of action currently, and whoever gets the election is going to have to balance issues that arise that aren't foreseeable yet.
And now we're gonna go see what the students of Burris think.
We surveyed a total of 168 students. However, we only found 128 valid ballots.
And we found through this research that Burris is a lot more of a liberal school than a conservative. And now, let's go see some graphs.
Hi, I'm Josh Monroe. I was part of the team that distributed ballots to the high school students and recorded the data that was involved in it. We distributed ballots to 168 high school students and then took the data and put it onto graphs. These are our results for what we found.
So for our Republican versus Democrat graph, we recorded 168 ballots. However, 40 of them were unusable as people didn't answer surveys right by putting neither for like they're both Republican candidates or both of the Democratic candidates. So we had to cut out 40 ballots. So this graph represents 128 high school students out of the 168 that we interviewed, which should still give a semi-accurate representation of the high school body. For Democratic candidates, we found that just over 80 people voted for the Democratic versus the Republican, which received about 45. Bernie Sanders won in the Democratic category against Hillary Clinton, about 45 to 81 again. And Donald Trump lost in a landslide against Ben Carson for the Republican. So while more people would vote for Ben Carson over Donald Trump, they still lost to Bernie Sanders, who would win over Hillary Clinton. In the 17 and below category, we found what we expected, which was that more people throughout the school tend to lean towards the more liberal side. The most extreme we had the most extreme being to the left almost completely, and that was only one individual. We gave several more conservative statements and several more liberal statements, and depending on which way they answered, whether it was agree or disagree, we moved them along on a scale and determined that the majority of the 17 and below population of high schoolers that we interviewed, which was all 168, leaned more towards the liberal side. For 18 and over, it's the same. However, there was a much bigger difference in that it was much closer to 50-50 conservative and liberal, but most of the people who were conservative were very small-sided conservatives in that had they answered questions only slightly differently, they would have been put on the liberal side.
One pack. Hey, Tim, wake him up. Okay, got it. Dang. Try it again.
Thank you, Josh, for that insightful commentary.
Ah! Well, that's all we have for today. So now we're gonna go to commercials. But when we come back, is Bradley Niles Canada running for president?
Well, this was the day we made them trust them. So they wouldn't trust them again.
What?
I'm messing around. But the Pilgrims wouldn't, or the Indians wouldn't.
Stay frosty, my friends. Burris Filtered Lightspeed System signing out.